Welcome to our November edition of our Kentucky K-12 EdTech Leaders in Seattle's Webcast. I'm David Couch, Department of Education. Welcome and thanks for joining us before Thanksgiving. And we do have a poll question on our Go Soapbox related to Thanksgiving. So we'd be interested in you doing that. Anything else you would like to discuss? Because we have people watching that and rolling up. We also have some discussion questions that we'd like your input on. But thanks for joining us for the districts, our OET staff, along with our CATS partners that have joined in with us. First up, I'd like to say congrats to KISTE on their fall conference. That was November 10th. I thought that was extremely well done. Had two topics that were great and relevant in cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. And just before we started, we not kept up with artificial intelligence since Friday. They want to do a search on that of all the different things that have happened in a very short period of time since just last Friday. But well done event, and I appreciated just all the speakers that we had, including the OET staff. Thought you did a good job with what you presented. And then the breakout sessions after lunch, and I enjoyed sitting at the table and having a discussion. In fact, one of those discussions leading, we wanted to have the closed session discussion today about Social Security numbers and email addresses that we're gonna, just for those that are watching just by YouTube, we will be turning that off at the end and just remain on the Teams meeting with districts and our OET staff to talk about a closed cybersecurity subject, which we typically do for cybersecurity. Is we don't make that generally public, and so we just have a closed session with just our staff and with the districts. But we'll save that to the very end. Good news happened pretty recently. Back on November 9th, we had the 2024 to 2030 CATS Master Plan approved by a legislative committee. I was there to answer questions or concerns, and they had no questions or concerns. I took that as a great sign. And therefore, it will go into effect, right now scheduled to go into effect on 5 March 2024, which by coincidence, and this is truly coincidence, that is going to be my mom's 87th birthday. And I told her, and she was just like, what the heck? You know, she's followed CATS very closely, obviously me being involved with it for 32 years. And I thought it was a pretty cool thing that on our birthday, we have the 6th version of the CATS Master Plan approved. And thanks for all the effort that has gone into that as we approach the finish line and the effective date for that. Next up, I'd like to spend some time for our team to talk about the status of our Kentucky K-12 Next Generation Kentucky Internet pilots. One of my favorite things is get a message from Mike Lettingham that tells me about the latest pilot that is up and operational. And we'll continue some form of that going forward. But it looks like things have gone well so far, and we obviously encourage our pilot districts to join in, and like we've done other pilots in the past, is join in and let folks know how that's going from your perspective. So Mike, I'll turn that over to you.
Yep, thanks, David. Yeah, we wanted to, kind of give an update on where we are with this initiative that's been ongoing for several months now, and so we thought we were in a good spot to give everybody an update of kind of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going as we continue this effort on the next generation K through 12 internet here in Kentucky. So just real quickly, the kind of where we've been, back in February, we awarded a new contract to ENA and their partners. And I think that's a familiar name now. And then, their partners, two primary partners for sure is Telecom and Fortinet. They've got other folks that help them as well. But that's been part of the effort that we engaged in February. And so throughout that time, a lot of work has gone on in planning, preparation at all levels, districts, with the partners, with our OET staff. And we want to give an overall thank you and shout out to everybody that's been involved and all the really great planning and preparation that occurred, again, starting in February and through when we began our first pilot sites transitioning to the new internet services in October. And so again, we won't go into a lot of detail on all the site preparation, all the, our KE groups worked KE folks worked hand in hand with districts in preparing, and again, to name everybody and all the different things in there is a whole nother discussion, because that can take a lot longer to get into all those details. So I won't do that. So where we are, we have implemented 18 districts have transitioned over to the next generation K through 12 internet as of today. And so we'll talk about those here in just a second. You can go ahead and pull that up, Jennifer. Thank you. Jennifer has been our project manager on this effort, and a lot of folks know her name now that didn't know it. Has done a great job of coordinating, keeping us all in line as far as all the different activities and the tasks between all the different players that have been involved in this effort. So let's go ahead and talk about where we are now, and then we'll go to where we're going here in just a little bit. So the visual on there, I hope everybody sees that. Somebody give me a thumbs up. I'm sure that I'm seeing it. So since I didn't put it up there, so that right there shows all the green sites are the ones that have implemented, have transitioned, and are running on the next generation K through 12 internet. So those are made up of sites that we'll refer to as pilot sites and early adopters. And then the yellow sites are the ones that are scheduled to occur between now and the end of the calendar year 2023. Now, an interesting point, we've been doing on it, one site per day on the days that they were scheduled. We do have some days where we didn't schedule transitions. And in beginning in January, we will be doing 2 sites per day to complete the implementation no later than in June of 2024. Now, I want to speak a little bit about these pilot sites, and I know we emphasize this with a lot of initiatives that we have going on, but it's an important role when we have folks sign up to be pilot sites, because it is our way of verifying all of the things that have been planned and prepared for up to whenever we start going live with a new service or a new system, whatever it is that we're implementing. And obviously, we ask these sites to be patient and to be, participatory and working through issues that come up, whether they're related to the processes and the steps that we follow to carry out, in this example, a transition, or whether we work out kinks that are going to come up between just operational aspects of what's going on. But, and then there was some examples of that in this, and we knew there would be. I mean, where we we got different players that are all working together. Between us, the districts, and ENA and their partners, and so there were some things that had to be worked through our pilot phase, and so that was I say that's to be expected. The good thing is they were able to be responded to and reacted to quickly, and we feel like we're at a really good stable state now as far as the transition going forward. So we will be exiting pilot phase as of today, basically. We don't have any sites scheduled over the Thanksgiving break. So when we start implementing and transitioning districts again, beginning next week, we will be out of the pilot phase. Now, that doesn't mean anything real specific other than from our aspect, we feel like we're at a very stable state as far as our processes and our steps that we follow to transition. We're still going to pay attention to every site that gets transitioned just the same. We'll say that these early sites, there was a little bit more attention going on to the kind of the hour by hour kind of stuff as once they were transitioned, and then once they were up and running for some period of time. We'll still monitor after a district transitions for a few days very specifically, and then transition over to the operational monitoring that will occur. So that will continue, but it is a pretty big step to be able to be comfortable that we piloted this process. We feel comfortable. We've got districts that are up and running. And again, not to say there hasn't been a few little bumps and so forth, but things are pretty stable and running as anticipated. Now, I'm going to go ahead and speak before we ask them the pilot sites. I'm going to speak to where we're going real quick. Obviously, this project will continue through June of 2024 with the expectation that we will be completed, no later than before July 1 of 2024. And so throughout that time, there's going to be some continued things that we're going to continue to fine tune, especially from an operational standpoint about how we're going to operate, monitor, and maintain this environment. Phil and Brian, the 2 Brians that are part of his team and providing leadership and guidance there, will assume a lot of direct responsibility and accountability about how that will occur. We're going to continue to work on the tools and the things that are available to the districts to understand the performance that is occurring, understand when there are issues, what the status of those are, how those are being reacted to. So there is a lot of that stuff that will continue to get worked out throughout the remainder of the project time. And I know I've stated that all along. We do expect there'll still be some things come up. This is while we feel like we're implementing a very solid solution here, it still is a new environment with, again, different players working together and working through some of the things that will come up. So that's the big picture of where we have been, where we are, and where we're going. I know we want to very much so wanted to emphasize a thank you to the pilot sites. I think, Chuck, you've got a few pilot sites that are prepared to make some comments, and again, we'll open that up to anybody and any of our staff. Before I do that, I want to again say thank you to all of our OET staff that have been heads down dedicated to this effort, and will continue to do so. Again, even though we're in a stable state, we'll still be heads down, paying attention to the continued efforts to complete this initiative. And then to ENA and their partners, and then again to the pilot sites and the early adopter sites. Again, I categorize them somewhat the same. Pilot sites and early adopters were the sites that have been implemented and have been the ones that had to be prepared to react if they had unexpected issues or challenges that came along with that. So, Chuck, I'm going to let you kind of call out or help me with the pilot sites we got that are going to speak.
Yep. So, just to tag Mike there, preparedness was obviously a key to the success on what I would say both sides of the equation for a successful transition. I mean, obviously, as Mike has already spoke to, ENA and their partners, our staff behind the scenes, fully prepared for successful transition, but that doesn't happen without all of the preparation that our pilot sites have put into play, and we will continue putting into play as we transition additional sites. So, that first pilot, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to call on Kevin, all right, from Bullitt County, because here's what I'll tell you. Number one, this wouldn't be an OET webcast without a sports analogy, okay? So, typically that first play of a football game, first offensive play, man, you like to be able to gain some positive yardage. You don't want to take a sack. You don't want to fumble. So I will say that first pilot side, we're always holding our breath, both on the project side and the district side. We feel like we've covered every base. We've crossed every T, dotted every I. We've tested and tested and tested, but you got to put it on the field. So, Bullitt County was willing to be our very first pilot site. So, Kevin, if you're on where you can talk, would you mind kind of unmuting, turning on your camera, and letting folks know kind of what your experience has been? And then once Kevin's done, any of the other pilot sites, early adopter, really anybody that's transitioned, okay, just raise your hand. We will call on you if you would like to share some commentary about your experience. So, Kevin, are you out there?
Yep, I'm here.
All right, take it away.
So basically, Chuck, what you're saying is it was a fumble recovery for a 40-yard touchdown. Is that what you're alluding to?
That's it.
Okay.
That's it. We
All right,
scored
that sounds
first
good.
play.
Fumble recovery was going through the checklist, and going through the checklist and doing all the things. I'm happy to say that it's a refined checklist now, and a lot of those things are not there. But I want to echo the preparedness side of things. I've got a great team here that was just eager to be prepared and ready when I, announced to them about a week later that I had volunteered us to be the very first pilot site. So that was a positive, to see that their eagerness. I mean, whether it was, OET, ENA, Excelicom, or even Volta, like it was all smooth and transitionless almost, right up until the cutover. And the cutover was, for us, about 2.5 hours, but it was great. Had a great group of people here. Charlotte was in constant communication, at least twice a day, which was amazing during that whole time. But yeah, the communication is key. The patience is key. And I mean, the only hiccup that we had is that we had purchased the wrong GBIC. From the get-go, and that was literally the only hiccup, and that was decided long before the cutover. So the cutover was just as smooth as it could be.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you.
You know, you mentioned the readiness guide. I'll go ahead and speak to that real quick. Obviously, that has been something that's been refined from the, and we expected that. That's a great example of something we expected to really refine that as part of going through the pilot phase, and it has been. So we do want districts to really pay attention to the readiness guide as their transition date is approaching. Obviously, it shouldn't be the first time they're taking a look at it and doing some of the things that are required as part of that. I know the KEs absolutely are making sure that's happening, but we do want to emphasize the importance of that document and the things that it will guide folks to be paying attention to.
Exactly. So Ben Granger from Crittenden County, are you out there?
Hello?
Ben, yes, is that you?
Yes, it's me.
Talk to us. Tell us about your experience with NGK
Oh,
acquisition.
I'd just like to reiterate everything that Kevin said. Ours was smooth. Everything went well. Jody did a fantastic job with keeping me informed and on top of things, as well as everyone else involved. The process was just smooth, and basically I just had to open doors for people. So it was just a great experience overall. And I love the access to all the new tools where we can kind of get some more insight into what's going on our network. So it's just a great experience overall.
Awesome. Thank you so much. What about Tim from Augusta? Tim, are you out there?
I'm here, Chuck.
Yes, sir.
So the day of was a really smooth experience. Couple hours for the cutover, like the others have said. Really didn't have to do anything other than open those doors. Left feeling really good, but we were one of those unique experiences where we had sort of an offset. We have a board office that's on a third-party internet provider that has a secure router to VPN us into the CATS network. It wasn't anything I really thought about there being an issue there because it's just one of those things that it's up and it runs. So it did take a few days of troubleshooting. We weren't having internet activity at the board office, and pretty technical beyond what I deal with, things with packets dropping and things like that. So we do have at least a temporary solution in place so that, obviously we have internet connectivity at the board office, internet traffic can get through. And I think on ENA's in, and they're still kind of working on, how to make that more of a permanent solution.
Awesome.
That's a great example for us to speak to. Augusta, very much so. We know there was a unique scenario that got exposed basically when the transition occurred, and therefore there was attention that had to be provided to that, as you were just speaking to resolve that issue. So the thing I want to take an opportunity to remind districts of when it comes to that is be very thoughtful and mindful of your unique local things that you have in place, whether that's applications that you have that may be unique to you that are running and depending on the internet or your network in really kind of any way. And try to give some thought of those ahead of time, especially with any local partners that you work with for that unique environment that you have, whether it's related to an application or some kind of a connection to a remote site, such as it was in Augusta to their board office, or whether it's with your voice system. We've got some things that we can say are replicated between districts when it comes to voice systems, but we know we got some unique environments that exist out there too with some local kind of little special things that have been done. And so you want to make sure you got your local partners in the loop, aware of when your transition date is, and try to have given thought obviously ahead of time about what could occur with something that's unique to your local setup configuration.
Yep. So Mike, as I wait for any of our other transition sites to raise your hand, just to tag the readiness guide one more time. I mean, obviously version 2.0 is out there. Been through several iterations, and I do want folks to recognize that document is a living document. Okay. And really, to Augusta and Mike's point, part of the power of the CATS network for years has not only been its standardization and its security, but its flexibility. All right. So we know that districts have done some really awesome and creative stuff. All right. Within the flexibility and the boundaries that we have, those things may rear their head as we move forward. We may uncover more items that we need everybody to pay attention to and adjust to and prepare for. So as we have updates to that readiness guide, we'll make sure through our KEs, all right, that we publish that and we point out exactly maybe what's changed or what we've discovered. But once again, to Mike's point, having all of your players on what I would call bat phone level access, your network providers, your voice providers, any of those folks at day of transition may have to work with our team through some stuff is invaluable. So do we have anybody else out there that's transitioned that would like to make some comments at this time?
Yeah,
We'll turn it back over to you.
I think that helps the other sites get confidence. And if you're at one of the other 15, please jump in.
I see that Wesley Tipton's got his hand up.
Okay, go ahead.
Wes Tipton from Bourbon County Schools. I just want to take this time to thank the whole team throughout the project. The commitment to excellence has been evident at every stage. So meticulous planning and seamless execution. Ours went really well. We were like the other last guy that talked. We had our cores over at the board office, but wasn't a problem, and ours went in about an hour. So we over here at Bourbon County just want to thank everybody, and I think Mike and Chuck, and we talked to them the other day that everything went really well, and the best thing for us is when we're doing a project like this, when our users don't see any difference for them the next day, then that's a success. So just want to champion those guys and the whole team who did that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So while we're seeing if anybody else raises their hand there, I want to also give a shout out, and I want to make sure, Phil, you have an opportunity to speak to any aspect on this as well before we conclude here. And then Tim Sizemore as well, who continues to be our overall program manager and coordinator for our internet program as well. I give a call out and a shout out to you guys. You mentioned something in the last one there about the time that it takes to do the transition. And I know, I don't know if everybody picked up on it, but the first ones that we did took, a couple hours, and then where there were a few instances, took a little longer to sort out a few things. But we are really down to where this is about an hour transition time when your transition is scheduled. It really is about an hour. And again, I want to, gotta knock on some wood here. I know, but and you got to plan for it could take a little longer, but the reality is these are going pretty smooth and pretty quick. And that's something to give credit to, again, all the different players that have been involved in helping make sure these happen. And also, somebody mentioned Volta. I failed to mention Volta is a partner we brought into the work here to assist us with these transitions. So I'm glad somebody mentioned their name as well.
I think Jonathan wants to speak.
Okay.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to give a big thanks to the ENA team, the KD folks, and our vendors as well. You guys really had the harder job of this entire project. As for us, it was seamless, hands-off during the preliminary part of the project. Even though we did have a few growing pains after our cutover, I would like to say to that point, ENA has a great support channel. Anything they followed up with emails as well as phone calls to some of the issues we had after our initial cutover, and just a great support structure there. I just wanted to point that out.
That's a great call out on that. And obviously it's something that we anticipate and expect as part of a service like this that is so dependent upon is a quick reaction and responsiveness to anything that comes about and communication regarding what that is. And obviously, as I said at the beginning, during the pilot phase, it's, we anticipate a few of those things can happen, but when we transitioned to site, y'all were operational. I mean, you all had to continue doing business. So we were live. So, the reaction and the response had to be there. And we really thank you for pointing that out, because that's a critical part of this overall environment that we, obviously anticipate going forward.
I don't think most people outside the technology industry maybe even realize the complexity, as Steve Rourke mentioned this in his comment. the level of precision that's required to make all these moving parts work, just not with NGKI, but the other parts, is really lost on the average person. And particularly with this one, as we when you have two systems operating at the same time, which is a smart way to do it, it's definitely ups the complexity. But I do want to thank, before again, I see Phil's going to speak here, is the 8 pilots that volunteered to be part of this. Because you take a risk as well in going down this path. And the folks involved with the pilots, I said, oh, this is going to be a cooperative pilot. Because I would just tell you, as you're doing pilots in your organizations, you try to find a cooperative pilot versus one that will throw you under the bus and then go to the press and whoever. And unfortunately, I speak from experience of that in the early days of KETS. A couple of our early pilot sites did just that, and we're trying to learn. And obviously, as Mike has shared, you're gonna learn things. And what you don't need is someone going to a large audience of the other districts and the press and talking about, not that you're trying to hide that things have gone bad, but you're trying to find a cooperative person who is just not there to throw you under the bus when the second it goes bad. So the important part was we did pick some cooperative districts, and so I appreciate. But you all took a risk in doing this, as have all the folks that have volunteered to be a pilot for what we have done. So I want to thank you for being those, and I want to thank you for those that spoke up today, because it does help give others confidence in what we're going to do, because we're getting ready to up the pace. Then obviously we did with the pilot sites, it's getting ready to move here, and it has to move here pretty quickly to get all the districts done by July. Now, Phil, you want to speak?
Well, I was going to say something about the complexity, but you've covered that, and we've talked about that a few times and how complex it is and all the moving parts behind the scenes. I think, David, one of the things that is exciting for me that school districts will have going forward are the new tools that they will have to be able to see and manage their network. They'll have transparency that they've never had, before. So those tools and the transparency and the way those can be used is really a really complementary kind of service that goes along with what we have, and I'm really excited about that, because that's something that's very different and very new for us and for school districts.
Chuck, I'm going to let you close this out, because I want you to hit on a couple of points that you hit on our OET leadership team meeting yesterday about, this day, there's other things going on. We'll have, but don't forget about this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The fact that, go ahead. I know you got it, Chuck.
Well, I was just going to call out real quick that Jennifer Devine, our project manager, who is literally, I would say, in the center of the eye of the storm, all right, for scheduling, coordinating, communicating across 1,000 different channels. And I bring that up because I do want our school districts to know, moving forward, the scheduling has been based literally 100% around availability for make-ready work and preparedness from ENA and their partners. So as of right now, we're pretty confident in our January, February schedule. Okay, we're going to be working toward building out schedules for March and April and May soon. So what we ask for everybody is just to stay really, really flexible and be prepared, to go and be prepared to commit when we identify a scheduled date that we know that our partners and all of the players, all right, can make that happen. That's number one. Number two, now that the glamour of a pilot phase is over, obviously there's a ton of work to be done still. I mean, there's 18 sites that have migrated. I think we're about 20% done, Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong, with make-ready work, which means we've still got a ton of activities that are going to be going on behind the scenes. What that does to us as an organization, OET as a service organization, it's got our resources pretty focused right now. So, we need to make sure that we can let our folks and our partners do what they do to serve you school districts. But it also means there may be some responsiveness in the field that's lacking as we're heads down focused on, NGKI. So I just, David, I'll close it. I'm going to throw it back to Mike. I just want to
Well,
thank
I think we're in a good spot, and it's good to remind folks that, and it's kind of part of where I said where we're going is, we really wanted to take the opportunity to speak to the place that we're at as far as we've had a good pilot phase. We feel confident that we're at a stable state. We've got a good process down for transitioning sites. I think the sites are seeing dependable, reliable service from that are up and running. And but yet we've got 7-8 more months to go, and so we will continue to have resources that are going to continue to pay attention to what's going on, be focused on this effort, and that's part of what we want to emphasize there, and so that will be continued to be part of it, and we hope to be able to continue to provide positive updates on where we're at, and definitely stay in tune with your KE. The KEs are very much so in the know on the details. And I know providing the one-on-one guidance to the districts as far as being ready to transition and move over. So I think we're in a good spot.
Yep. Once again, thanks to all that are involved with this. The districts, our excellent vendor partners, our OET staff. Do appreciate your great effort with this, and it's going well. So keep doing what we're doing. We'll just have to pick up the pace of it, obviously now, right? I want to remind you, we have Go Soapbox out there. Marty sent a reminder in the chat, so we look at that. I look at it through here if anything's bubbling up. And obviously, you guys kind of vote on the kind of things you want us to bubble up to. We have some discussion questions on there. I know Dee Dee and others would like some feedback on that we put out there. Now we're going to share with you the preliminary results of the 2024 Digital Readiness Report. This is based upon the data that all the districts have turned in at the very end of September. And the good news is we have this to share with you much earlier than we ever have before. So like I say, it's preliminary, but it's pretty close to the finish line. We'll share pieces of it that we didn't share today in December, and obviously we'll have the final one that we used in the legislative session, the infographic in the January timeframe. But I wanted to give you some feedback. And I'm always big into getting feedback on things we're doing. I shared with you last month the survey that our OET staff takes, which, and I'm always interested in the good and the bad and ugly. How can we improve? And also, what are we doing well in? We'll talk about the top 5 feedback here in just a second to do that. But also, the work that we're doing with the readiness report is important to show kind of where we're at and where we're going. And so, Marty, I'm going to ask you to share the results. So that Marty and I had a direct report yesterday evening and kind of did a little run through of this. And so this is our staff. Our OET staff has not seen this either, besides some of the people that are involved with this. So this is new information for them as well. So Marty, turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Really appreciate it. Our digital readiness work, we use the data, as you mentioned, in a lot of different areas, whether that's thinking about budget requests, whether that's thinking about future planning. We definitely use it. You mentioned the KETS Master Plan progress earlier. We use it inside of that. As a state, we really would not have been able to move forward as fast as we have over the years without this collective effort. And so this has been the best year for digital readiness. As you kind of led off with a little bit of that, but also there's several other factors that play into where we're looking at this as kind of our best year for digital readiness so far. Every year we've gotten a little bit better, but collectively, thank you as an EdTech leader in your district. It takes a lot of effort to pull this information together, and it's not just counting stuff all the time. And strategically, you help us every year reshape the questions that we're asking. You've been very upfront and given great feedback on, hey, this question would be better if you asked it this way. So our field staff have done an awesome job this year in each region to get that feedback from you and then work through as we modernize. This digital readiness this year is the tightest or best alignment that we've ever had with school report card. And so, for example, and we knew this would be important this year, but we have zero A1, B1, or D1 schools left to report from a school report card side. So when we think about inventory and understanding the technologies in each school, all those aggregate up at your district level. And so we have extremely tight alignment in your district's digital readiness report based on the work that you're doing at each one of your schools. And so that alignment is the tightest it's ever been. Great alignment this year. It was a target for us over the last several years, and this year along with our team have achieved that. And so that's awesome. I do want to share, and I'm going to share my screen, and just to, again, David mentioned what we do when we pull this, our digital readiness in is to look at it in different ways and through different lenses. And so this is just an internal view that we have as the data comes in. We kind of see it populated, and our field staff, that's our CETS engineer team, our digital learning team, put extreme effort into the stewardship of ensuring that we help along the way to try to get as accurate and complete digital readiness as possible. This includes the work that goes into our CETS master plan, your EdTech plan, but also up through federal reporting and other things that we do that we know is important. And so I think it's really important for us to understand that we have great participation in every district and every region through these reports. When we look at digital equity, these are just some snapshot pieces that are important. And if David, thumbs up, you can see screen okay?
I can. Your head's in my connectivity.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. Good. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to take care of that. So hopefully you can see. There we go. So our student to device ratio, again, has taken a huge jump. The way that we're looking at this now, of course, legacy traditional approach, we looked at average daily attendance. We all know that when you start assigning devices to students, as opposed to having devices in your school or in your classrooms or in your lab, we want to look at this by membership. And so we're at a 0.66 student to computer ratio, student to device ratio, and that's a really strong number. Our different approaches for devices are starting to play out pretty strategically for you and for us as a state. And so just to point out, we're now, and this is an increase from last year. Most of these things that I'll share are increases from last year. So we're now at an 89% of all devices in our schools and districts across the state of Kentucky and public schools are mobile, what we have always referred to as next-gen devices. So close to 90%. That speaks volumes to our strategies and ensuring that we can get every time, everywhere access. 95% of our devices are ready for our statewide assessments, our high stakes testing and high stakes assessments. And so that's awesome for us. We do have a different breakdown this year for the first time ever. We're thinking about basic end user workstations versus what we've now considering advanced end user workstations. We'll continue to monitor and track this. We're at 77% of all devices, all computing devices, workstations across the state are basic, as we would categorize it. This is fantastic. Slow or no home internet. We're watching this and continuing to work to see this again decline, which means that fewer kids do not have access once they leave us. So we're down to 4.49%. That's a drop. And again, these are small percentage moves, but equal hundreds and thousands of kids. And so we were at 5.2% across the state, and now we're down to 4.49% as you report. No access beyond campus. So that's a little different way to look at that. So home access is one digital equity component. Access or having access to internet when you leave campus, whether that's at home, neighbors, grandmas, someplace else, we're down to, as reported, 1.49%, which is awesome. We're going to continue to drive that down from a digital equity perspective. I want to look at the one-to-one implementation, and this is important. We, as you know, and as we shared, we're taking a strategic shift on this conversation. We just looked at the student to computer ratios, and we know that we have more computers for student access across our public schools than we have students. And so, but when it comes to digital equity, and we're now strategically targeting and looking at when you are ready, again, digital readiness, when you are ready to assign a device to a student. And that may be assigning the device while they're in school that day. And it also may include taking that device home with them or beyond campus. And so these are questions that we shifted a bit this year. And so 91 districts are assigning devices to kids, which is awesome. 83 districts, and this is aggregate, right? So 83 districts may assign at some schools, but not all grade levels. And so there's a bucket of responses there that are taking a strategic approach locally in your district, that maybe you're targeting middle school and high schools, but not all elementary schools yet. But again, this is great work for us. And we'll continue to watch this trending move forward. Now,
Mark, one just comment I'd like to make, and you don't need to go backward, is the next generation devices, and another way to say that, those are mobile devices.
Yes.
So the trend that we're seeing is less and less and less desktop. And that's been on a pretty steep pattern to move to nearly 100% mobile. I mean, I haven't had a desktop computer in over 2 decades, and so and none of the KD staff have desktop itself. So that's a trend that we expect to see and continue on. That number, that 89%, is just going to grow and grow. It's going to be a very small percentage of desktops that are out there for the reasons we've talked about: the mobility, the flexibility.
Right.
Definitely the importance of it during the pandemic. So, Marty, you can go back to where you were at. Just wanted to make sure.
I'm glad you called that out, David. And just internally, we would project about 95% at some point mobility, right? So mobility, David, again, glad you called that out. Mobility is one of our areas of emphasis in our new master plan that we statewide, we're all pushing on pretty heavily. We do have districts that are close to that 95% projection. Again, that's not a stated target, but it's interesting to watch as we all continue to move and shift. And that is an area of emphasis for us, just to call out. So sorry to jump around so much.
To say is KD has been at that mobile for probably 2 decades.
That's right.
And Kentucky School of Deaf and Blind, which also falls underneath us, is also heavily mobile environment as well. So definitely see that trend. I say a minimum 95%, if not getting up to 97%.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Mark.
Right. So on kind of on that target, when you start assigning devices for it's one thing for staff, right? And then it's another strategic move for students. We had, again, 91 districts are assigning to all students, or majority of students. Of that, we have the ability to or the permission for students to take those home, and so at some level, right? And so that's fantastic. That's something that is important. Again, when you're ready for that, that's another strategic move in terms of what we refer to as digital equity, and ensuring that all kids have access when and where they need it as they're in the learning phase, and that we know it doesn't stop when the bell rings. We know it doesn't stop when our kids walk off campus. 103 are district sponsored. There's a combination, 37 districts. There's a combination of district and school sponsored. So a strategic partnership at the district and school level. And then there are 7 that report. Really, it's more school level grade, school focus, grade level, or program kind of sponsored or focused. These are some shifts that we have strategically made in the digital equity space when we're thinking about assigning devices and what that means. Now, this is one that we always talk about. We are dead on our trend path for our platform footprint. We're meeting projection that we made 5-6 years ago. We're close. And so as you can see, and again, I'm sorry for the screen kind of bouncing around at different spots, but We're right at 80% of our total device footprint is Chrome OS or Chromebooks. 12.8 or 13% is Windows. 1.5% is Mac, and then 5.5% is iOS or iPad, which is up. So iPad is up, Chromebook is up, obviously. Those are our two areas that have trended.
And just to help folks out, when you see total Windows, those are desktop and laptop. You take a look at the Mac OS, those are their desktop and laptops. And so obviously the Apple OS are the iPads.
That's right.
It's obviously a mobile device. And so you can see that trend of near zero desktops. And, the other reason besides mobility is in the early days, the laptop did not have the power of a desktop. And now, for the most part, these laptops, if not equal or better in the power than the desktop. And so these trends should not be surprising.
No, not at all. Not at all. Thank you for that. And we did have a shift in the way that we're asking about school-to-school connectivity or school-back-to-hub connectivity in order to match a federal reporting query that we had or question that came to us at some point. So we shifted a bit, but it's great to see that we have 337 schools at a gigabit or more, 854 that are greater than a gigabit per second, and 106. This is something that we always watch for different projects, but now 106 of our schools are at the hub site. Obviously, those other hub sites are at board offices or other buildings on campus. So 106 of our schools are at our hub site right now, which is great for us in strategic planning. We're down to about 100 schools, 101 that are fit in between this 100 megabit per second and gigabit per second, and so those are appropriately scaled. In many cases, when we've kind of taken a deep dive at these locations, they're appropriately scaled for the number of students that are in those buildings. And so, in terms of digital equity, these are students in buildings with a lower ADA, and so it's really an equitable opportunity in general with these locations or these buildings. So that's great for us at an aggregate level to kind of watch for. David, I know we had some really good conversations about this, and I know we'll deep dive internally, statewide. These are statewide aggregate responses, and it's interesting to look from the growth in a security posture from last year to this year. You and I kind of targeted some of these conversations. I just want to hit on a few that are when you compare them to last year and the amount of work and growth that you as our EdTech leaders have put in to improve our security posture, whether that's through security baseline initiatives or things that you're doing on your own. These things are not easy. And so with the growth and just, again, comparing side by side from last year to this year with the growth itself, you had, as an EdTech leader in your school district, you had to step in front of a lot of hard questions and push really hard for ensuring a better cybersecurity posture for your people. And these things are not easy. And so the growth is just major applause to you. 166 of our school districts have now implemented MFA for staff. 166. And David, I know we've been in conversations with other states, and when we look at numbers like this in terms of implementation, they're astounding, right? And especially when other states are comparing, well, how can we get our districts to improve their posture, and so this is really, really a great game plan.
They're nowhere close to us in these regards. The other 49 states, nobody's close.
Right on.
And so they're not close.
131 of you, of our EdTech leaders, have helped implement self-service password reset. Huge growth from last year. Implemented password reset notifications. We're still working on that. That's still a target. That's important.
And Mark, part of this sharing this data with you is you all know where you're at, and you may want to be someplace else. The to move the district, not you personally someplace else, but the district, moving them forward. This data is very helpful that we collect. It allows you to just not see yourself in the district, but compare yourself to districts around you and districts around the state. And it may give you leverage. All parts of what we do with the data that we fill in here. And we have another part of our tool that we populate with this data that really allows you to do regional to regional and district to district comparison. But if you're trying to get some of these things in place in your district and you're not doing it, you can say, listen, there's 131 districts that have done this. There's 160 districts that have done this. We're one of the few that has not. So it gives you some leverage as you're trying to convince people in your organization to move to these types of things. We're talking about security here, which I'm sure Bob Hackworth, our cybersecurity officer, is very pleased with the progress we've made. But it'll help give you some leverage as well. All parts of this report card, including what we do, or not report card, but we do in digital readiness, what we do to populate the other tool that we have that does a district to district and district to region and district to state comparison.
That's right. Well said. Well said. 123 school districts have implemented conditional access restrictions, and 137 have implemented a solution to receive ongoing support or reports and alerts, which again is a part of the overall strategy in terms of getting stronger, getting better. And so when we look at password character standards and expiration standards, there's huge growth here. And so, that is helpful as we move forward. David, I'm going to kind of hit just generally the people side work and hit on that we definitely have growth in the people side. This is an area of emphasis for us. If you're new to KETS, if you're new in a leadership capacity from an EdTech perspective, you will continue to see us to continue to push at the regional and local district level. We've had conversations, and we will continue to have conversations with superintendents on why the people side of our work is some of the most important part of the work, and we'll continue to push. We've had major growth. Now we've had some full-time, part-time strategies in play. We've had some federal funding that has gone away in some school districts, or access to those federal funding components, those one-time funds that have gone away. And so we're seeing some leveling and some right sizing of the people side work. And so because we know that investment is a strategic move at the district level and at the school level. But what we're seeing is more people, more overall people. And so that's fantastic. In terms of digital learning coaches, we have 168 in 80 districts that are full-time. We have an increase in part-time digital learning coaches in 87 districts, which is fantastic. So strategically, and if we look across from a year-over-year perspective, year-over-year, we see part-time folks through a stipend strategy or something like that. And then the value is received, and then that role transitions into a full-time in many locations. And so our library leaders are staying strong. That is a part of our work as well. We are at 946 library leaders across the state that are dedicated to one school, and so that's nation leading. So that's definitely something to really hang our hat on as support in this work. We are up for full-time technical support personnel. We are up from the last several years. This is some of the highest numbers we've seen, 668 full-time technicians. The strategy of outsourcing technical support is growing. That's interesting. Leveraging some different contracts for some, outsourced expertise that can be paid from an outsourced contract in some districts. That's generally, if we look at that in closer detail, that's some of our larger districts that are leveraging some outsourced contracts. Part-time techs are at 70. And so we're watching that trend work itself. The STC area is one that we have targeted to try to get a better perspective on. And so these in general school technology coordinators, what's fascinating is that we have titles and we have roles that sometimes do different things based on what district or school they're in, based on the perspective of the school leadership or district leadership. And so we'll continue to work that to ensure that we're talking about the same role, because a title doesn't always line up perfectly with a role when you look district by district. But we have 112 full-time school technology coordinators. These are adults and employees that are at a school and focused on a specific school. And we have 734 part-time STCs or school technology coordinators. These are generally technical support at the school level. And so that's always interesting for us. We have 108 STLP student help desks. That's down a little bit. But it's important for us. We'll keep watching that. And you can kind of see some additional, I wanted to point out, and David, I was celebrating yesterday with you that we have growth in our data stewardship and our data leadership. So Dee Dee Connor is, I guarantee you, jumping with excitement right now. We have 68 of our school districts who are reporting that we now have a data leader that is dedicated for data quality that is not the EdTech leader. And then 34 of us as EdTech leaders are also kind of designated or tagged as that data champion, that data leader, and overall responsible for data quality. And so this is growth. This is growth in this space. We still have 72 districts reporting no in that area, but again, it's definitely growth for us in about 6 or 7 school districts.
I want to hit a little thing at the end. In Katie, the agency, and so we try to walk the talk. For every data element, is we have a data steward assigned to that in one of the Katie offices. Very few of the data elements are technology related. It's a really, as I take a look at talking with my peers of other states, to get really data governance and data quality, you have to have the data stewards assigned. And it's not a data owner, it's a data, we can purposely use the word steward, because that means you're working with some other folks on that versus you're just doing your own thing. So data stewards is a very important part about getting data quality. And to see, I think I said 89 districts that are moving over to that, it's a very important fundamental practice. We walk that talk and we have it. And Dee Dee knows this as our chief data officer. When someone talks about data quality or there's an issue with data, the first question I ask her is, who's the data steward? Because that's who I go to. And that's the organization we go to answer a majority of these questions. Just because it's an IC, which is the vessel carrying this stuff, doesn't mean that the person managing IC is the data steward for it. For the most part, they are not. You go to the organization that is really, if this was not in electronic form, who would be the champion of that? And so it is, for those that don't, it is real something to try to get that in place if you want data quality. If not, then you will. I mean, if you don't have data stewards assigned, I would say it's near impossible to get data quality at a high level. Go ahead, Marty.
Well, David, just to kind of round out, we did ask some additional what we refer to as digital or student digital opportunities. These are digital learning opportunities. These are strategic approaches that each one of our school districts that you are taking. So learning management systems, we know, is extremely important to have a strategy in that space, and the breakdown there continues to be pretty solid in this space. And so we capture that and we learn. Some of those have an expense, and so your funding and your technology activity report highlights that and details that. In the online and virtual space, which we'll talk about here in a bit, we now have 152 school districts who are offering internally a full-time option for online and virtual enrollment. Full-time, that's full-time option for online virtual. That's up from 111 the previous year, and then up from mid 40s to 52 of you have what we refer to as expanded enrollment. This is leveraging the non-resident student law that was passed very recently. So leveraging that law, we now have 52 districts who are enrolling students from other school districts as non-resident students into the online and virtual program. And so, David,
I guess what you're saying, what could be a little misleading about the full-time is the credit recovery.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
And I was going to mention that as we transition into the other topic, where we wanted to give an update on virtual academies, but we've got work ahead of us as a state, working with you as district leaders. It's a data quality a component, as we've highlighted in other areas. But when a student is full-time enrolled online, virtual, and remote, meaning they don't come to campus but for specific things, but full-time enrolled remote, that's what we're after from a programmatic perspective, to understand and learn more, to help more. There are major technology implications there that we'll continue to work through. But David, we're talking through that when students come in and really go to a lab or some setting, that they're actually showing up for school and they're in a traditionally known as a credit recovery strategy. We're trying to make sure that we from a data quality perspective, we understand that those two things are very different, and so we'll continue to work that path.
The couple comments, and I appreciate, just a reminder, go soapbox, is the reason we like that. You kind of vote on a topic and it kind of bubbles up, and you say, I like that one is, and Jody posted this, one thing we saw on the field, which is related to stewardship, is the challenge districts face with older devices, not in use, but not exactly surplus as of yet, spare parts or emergency use and waiting to be surplus. And so that figures in that number, that 1.1 million being so high of devices. Reference STCs, mine are full-time and assigned to one school. They handle all the device assignments and the first level tech support. They're definitely not techs. One-to-one Wrangler would be a more appropriate title.
I love that, Dave. There's so much context, customized context, district by district, school by school. That's great. That's a great way to think about that.
By the way, don't forget to vote in the poll how much turkey to plan eating this Thanksgiving. By the way, I did vote that I would be eating more than David Couch. So I did go into that one. So please give us your feedback and the discussion questions as well. Thanks, Marty. Dee Dee, data systems update.
Hello, glad to be here today. Just wanted to start off just by giving you some quick updates on Infinite Campus. And I like to ask for some feedback from you. I put it in the Go Soapbox question, but I'm going to kind of go over a little bit about what we're talking about, maybe give you better context on that. We did release our school report card last month, last day of the month, but we got it in last month, and it is now final. The school collection and approval tool is closed. No changes at this point can be made. I think assessment accountability is still working on reviewing some things that might have gotten submitted to them, and we don't have maybe all the final assessment accountability data, but beyond that, we should be good. We do have information that has gone out to all of you all, thanking you. So I just want to tell you again, thanks. Maybe you didn't have anything to do with a school report card. Maybe you just passed along some messages, but maybe you were hands down. Whatever you contributed, we do appreciate it. It takes a lot of people to pull the school report card off. We do want to make sure that we ask you to ensure your links are correct on your websites, whether school or district links. A lot of times the whole URL gets put on there and it includes the year. So if your URLs included 2022 last year, they need to be updated 2023. If you just take the year off, it will work and automatically default to the latest school report card. We do have a school profile reports, should all be posted in the local board office now. We do have a RFP that is in process for a new school report card vendor. So expect everything to change next year. Just as we've gotten used to it and comfortable, we're going to change things up next year. Also want to mention to you all that the Civil Rights Data Collection does open to schools and districts on December the 11th. We want that to be as easy as we can make it on you, but it's a big job to provide all the data that needed by the Civil Rights Data Collection. It is we are currently populating data like we have in prior years, so that data will be pre-populated before it opens up to districts. At that point, I do want you all should check the data. Ultimately, you sign off that the data is right. And there's data posted on our website that we don't have access to, and you will have to enter that data into the civil rights data collection. So if you're not the right person, please pass this information along. I know they've been getting information from the civil rights data, the Office of Civil Rights anyway. So a lot of information has already gone out on this. We are looking, and this is where I want some feedback from you on, we're looking to make some changes and updates to our school and district directory. And we had some questions on there, and we do not have any feedback yet on it. So you might not know what we're talking about. But as WAPOCs, you all typically are ones that feed this information, or at least the people that are in the system. So let me share. If you go to our open house website, you'll see the school and just the district and school directory option right here. When you choose that, this is the page we're looking to rework. This is our directory information. If we pick on Adair, there's different information here. It gives you option to see the interactive map, the NCS codes, KDE staff directory. This option allows you to go to some additional download functionality. But if you go into, say, Adair County, it provides you the mechanism to see all the district contacts for your district as well as other districts. We're reliant on the WAPOCs and the People Role Manager or WSA application to be updated with the correct contacts. That is something WAPOCs typically do. The information on schools is available. You can choose a school here. What we want to do before we start making changes to this, we want to know how you're using it. We want to make sure that we don't make changes that would impact you. At this point, the WSA and the People Role Manager applications are not changing. So if you can add any information into the site, into the Go Soapbox app on ways that you're using it so that we can have that context in mind. We do think it's important to make sure this is used by folks to say, I want to know who the superintendents for all districts are. This is just a download. It allows you to export it to Excel, gives you the information. We give contact information. We do not provide email addresses through this download. We don't do that, but that gives you an option to be able to choose different roles. And then you have the option here to choose whichever role you want. And these are used by KDE to contact districts. So if, say, Karen Davidson, who is our data steward for course codes, wants to know all the course code contacts across the state, she's got information makes this information available to her for distributions and being able to make sure we're getting the information out to the right folks in schools and districts. So that's the information we're asking you to provide input on. We do think it would be helpful for not just KDE perspective. We're reaching out to other areas too to make sure that we've got a lot of input into what we need, what this is used for today, as well as maybe some additional things it could be used for if it had additional functionality. So we're looking for your feedback on that. So please put any comments you have into the Go Soapbox. We got a couple things here, but not much yet. So it is something that I know KDE relies heavily on. We actually send a lot of inquiries we get from different, from the community, just, asking them who to contact. We look for that, and we actually send to the school and district directory to know who to contact at your district. So please do take a look at that information and provide us some feedback. Let me get back to my cheat sheet here.
And we intentionally do not list the email addresses because those are the #1 tool of cyber criminals. So that's intentional that those are not there, even though there's a way that they could, cyber criminals, those create mischief, or just those that are just trying to advertise a bunch of stuff, that unwanted spam, that makes them work for it. And I find a very low percentage actually want to work for it. They just want to have a big swath of addresses. So we intentionally make it difficult for folks to get a large swath of email addresses, including all the superintendents across the state.
Right. So it's just a couple of Infinite Campus things. We do have some training coming up. We've got Infinite Campus Interchange is December 14th and 15th in Louisville. I think last I heard there was about 500 that have registered for that already. But if you have folks in your district or you haven't already registered and would like to go, there's still time to do that. And then January 24th, we have our mid-year training. So if there's topics that you know would be helpful for folks in your district, please use the Go Soapbox to provide the information. And then we do have one last reminder on the One Roster. If you're using the older version of One Roster, please make sure that by December 18th, you've upgraded or some of your interoperability solutions will break. So I know we've talked about that in the past. So David, I don't think we have to pull up all the other soapbox questions. I think they were just things that they can provide back to us.
Right.
Thank you. That's all I got.
I skipped over one. And this is an important one. The top 5 feedback, and for those that are new, or just a reminder, this is the feedback we get from all districts and all KD, all OET staff and our different offices in KDE. From their perspective, what are the top 5 things we did during the 2023 calendar year? What are the top 5 things we didn't do well? And I'd add on to didn't get to that we should have gotten to. So that's part of number 2. And number 3, what should our goals be? Top 5 goals be for the calendar year 2024. What Lisa Moore does, and she does it every month, is she does the written summaries of our OET team huddles that are been shared with all of our OET staff. And she also does the summaries that was shared with you today for that last month. And those are good to look back on over the past 12 months because, to be honest with you, people forget all the kind of things they have done and haven't done over the past 12 months, even the past 2 months. You tend to forget about all the things being done. So Lisa has put those together for districts, and those have been given to our regional KEs, who in turn share those with districts. And so that's our mechanism, and hopefully you'll use those as a reference. This is not something to wait till the last second to do. This is something we've talked about for a while. And it's important information for a couple of different reasons. One is allows our field staff and us in OET to understand from each individual district perspective is what are your top 5 in all those areas. It also allows me to do the same thing with each one of our OET staff members from their perspective individually. And then allows me to collectively see what are common themes that our OET staff have. What are common themes that our district have? What are common themes and uncommon themes between our OET staff and our KD staff and districts? And those are very helpful. I think this is really a tool that's helped us remain relevant and in touch with districts. And we just don't take it and send it someplace. As most of you have been around, we actually act upon it and move forward with it with a variety of things, and just not presenting to the legislature, but it lets us understand, are we in touch with the heartbeat of what's going on with our staff, with our districts, collectively and individually. So please give it your best effort and not a last minute, let me see what I can put down in here. And then, as I told our OET staff, they will get a chance to excel again. If I see it looks like they did it last second, let me just throw some things in there. And districts will get the chance to get excel again if it looks like they gave a one-word answer and just were trying to turn it in. So please give it your best effort. And just like the digital readiness that we just shared with you, we share the results with you collectively, not individually, in a future webcast. And that'll probably be in January that I typically share that. That's my Christmas gift that you give me. I enjoy reading the top 5 things we did well. Those are a lot of fun to read. They're not as fun to read the top 5 things we didn't do well or didn't get to that we should have, but I read every one of those. And I need to read every one of those. And then what our goals should be for the following calendar year. And obviously, I think that obviously focuses our direction. I'll get certain staff members say, where are we going in 2024? We have a master plan, but also we incrementally take a look at this feedback to guide our work for the next year. So please give it your best effort when we do this. Marty, I'm thinking about, in reference to time, is going through the virtual academies next month versus trying to rush through that. I do want to say this is the last time that we presented, Marty was getting ready to present to the legislature back on October 17th. We sent a copy of the whole thing of that you can see in the summary notes that Lisa put together. But I wanted Marty to hit through the highlights, and I do want to say this, and I said this to our own staff, much like Sean Jackson did a wonderful job representing OET and KDE in our state to our legislature with computer science. Marty Park did a wonderful job representing OET, KDE, and districts with virtual academies. 5-star type of information, and I presented to a lot of legislative committees over the years, probably 100 at least. And you can tell when a legislative group is paying attention when they're not paying attention, and they were paying attention, and with good cause to what Marty had presented. Just not be presented, but it's the longest time I've ever seen someone be able to ask questions, because typically they only allowed 2 or 3, and probably allowed 15, 20, and Marty, they did a wonderful job of responding to those. And so I don't want to rush that through, because Marty will focus in on that. I know you stayed up all night preparing for it for this presentation today, but I want to give it just due versus rushing through it.
Absolutely. And I did want to mention, because I was going to pull them together, that Ben Maynard for us and in our Office of Education Technology, OET, in the CATS program leads our virtual work. And so I happened to be the one at the table that day and sharing along with our Chief Academic Officer and Office of Financial Operations. But Ben is the one who is the brains behind the scenes, but he also is the brains behind all of our digital readiness work that we're doing. So he's actually in a school district right now working with a superintendent and some leaders. So
very well good to have him. Very much. I'm glad you highlighted Ben. Of course, he's the making IT happen guy, right?
He is, and he may have been one of the, which I will call out, and then I'll shut up. But there are 8 people, and I think Ben is one of them, who have selected that they're eating more turkey than you, which is dangerous levels of tryptophan, levels. And so
let's bring up their survey result. Let me see. Can you bring up the survey result? Let's see where we're at with the poll question. Too much. Okay.
I'm worried about the 8, which I know you were one of the 8, so that's kind of that's a data quality issue. But I'm also worried about these 8 that are not eating any turkey. So this is all anonymous, but we do need to send some alerts out for the 8 that are
probably intervention necessary.
100%.
Yeah. Thank you, Marty. Chuck, a quick high level on the connected user experience, RFP.
Yes, David.
Remember high level, Chuck, as we discussed.
Yes, and I will make sure that Marty Park and Mike Lettingham are on standby with mute duty in the event that I say something I shouldn't. But here's how I'm going to say this, because I want to bookend the process we're in right now. Okay, David, you just talked about the top 5. And, we spend every year and we prepare for our CIO summits. We have feedback that we get through our field staff. We've got feedback we get through 1,000 different channels. And here's what I'm going to say, whether it's NGKI or whether it's CUES, that feedback that you provide on an annual basis is what drives us toward solicitations. Okay. So it's, I will continue to emphasize it's invaluable. Because we take all of that feedback, and when we start looking at solutions for the enterprise, that's what we base it on. Yes, we base it on industry standards. Yes, we base it on trends, but more importantly, we base it on what are the problems we're trying to solve within K-12 in Kentucky. So when it comes to, the CUES RFP, obviously there's not a lot that I can say about that other than it's in process. Things are going as planned. All right. And I'll leave it there. But now let me book in the other side of it. Okay. When we talk about goals for 24, hopefully we get to a point soon, and soon's a great big broad topic. All right. Where in calendar year 24, we're going to have another exciting implementation to talk about as we're still wrapping up NGKI. All right. So, David, that's all I'm going to say about CUES. Am I safe?
Right. You are. It's in a good place, and I appreciate your effort and all those that have been heavily involved with it thus far. We say it's in a good place right now, so thank you.
Yep.
Another piece of information before we go to our closed session is the technology lease reg is also scheduled to go into effect on 5 March of 2024. And just a brief reminder about that is 99.9% of the technology lease reg process is from a legal point of view. Our KETS field staff are not involved at all at receiving them or circling back to the district about them. Virtually no one except me is involved with the leases and ROET staff because it is 99, and I'm gonna add some more nines, 99.999% a legal process. And so the form that is going to go into effect on 5 March is a checklist by the Office of Legal Services here in KDE. I do recommend districts start having their legal representative submit their leases to KDE through that, leases over 100K. It doesn't go to KDE at all. It goes straight to the legal office when you submit it to that. And the checklist, and if you fill that out, bam, it's there. If it's not filled out, the superintendent will be contacted. But I am the only one that's involved with those right now. And so once again, it is a lease. It is a legal process. And the checklist we went over in May. A copy of that is in our summary notes in June, if you're not sure of that process. So thanks for going through the agenda with us. I would like those that can give me some feedback on Social Security numbers and providing large swaths of email addresses to folks. This is a cybersecurity issue to me. My intention is to try to have legislation passed in the next upcoming session to provide some more cybersecurity as it relates to Social Security numbers, specifically of students, and K-12 organizations are not being required to give out large swaths of their email addresses because those are the number one tool in the tool bag of cyber criminals to be used in phishing attacks. And so that's the prelude to what I'll be discussing in the closed session. So for those districts that can give me feedback, because I'm getting ready to have discussions with folks in KDE and folks of other state agencies, that I'll discuss that with you in the closed session, on why can't we start moving toward the elimination of Social Security numbers being used definitely at the state agency level, and the elimination of large swaths of email addresses being provided to anyone outside of K-12. So that's what we'll be discussing and want your feedback for. So those watching us by the KD Media Portal on YouTube, thanks for joining us. Those that need to take off and can't provide me feedback or don't have the background to provide feedback on Social Security numbers that are used within your Infinite Campus system and provide for other purposes like for keys, you can take off too. So the districts, I'm really looking for, and that's not really a presentation, some feedback from the district level. So when I meet with folks here at the state agency level, I have that how it plays out in the field perspective. So thanks for joining us here in November. I do hope you eat more than David Couch and turkey and everything. So thanks for joining us this month, and we'll see you much earlier in December. Obviously, we won't be going through the 3rd week in December. We'll be having that sometime in the 2nd week of December, and we'll be sending you that date here soon. And that will be an abbreviated version of even a webcast, but the focus of that will be, one of them will be the Kentucky Virtual Academies. So thanks for joining us, and please leave the Teams meeting going, and Megan, go ahead and turn off the YouTube meeting.